Hi, Andre here from Revolution. I have with me the CEO of Longines today, Mr. Matthias Breschan. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Pleasure. I am so excited to talk about this brand because there are so many things happening for Longines nowadays. What do you think of when we say Longines? Some people think about skiing, some people think about horse riding, horse racing, but not many people in the world realize the historical significance of Longines in chronometry, in the history of creating advanced chronographs, high-frequency watches, and of course we are celebrating the rich history with the current collection we have here today. Matthias, what can you tell the audience about your brand? What is Longines to you?
Well, I joined Longines on the 1st of July 2020, and I was already more than 20 years in the watch industry. So I knew, of course, Longines and not a lot about Longines. But when I arrived in Longines, it was incredible and was so fascinated when I discovered, after having visited the museum, how rich, how unique this history and heritage of the brand is. There are so many things that Longines invented.
Yeah.
I didn't know that Longines invented the GMT movement.
Yes.
I didn't know that Longines had for decades an advance in high-frequency technology. I didn't know that Longines invented the flyback movements and many, many other, I would say, even iconic innovations that revolutionized the whole Swiss watch industry.
Precisely.
So it was fascinating for me.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I would say the best gift you can get when you get to a new company, because well, you know best that vintage watches now, they gained a lot of importance over these past years, a lot of interest even from young consumers. And of course, if you have such a rich heritage and history that allows you to build the future of the brand with new movements that recall these milestones, it's just a perfect, I would say, base to develop the brand in the future.
No, you're right. Like I said, very few people understand that extreme significance of Longines. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Longines is responsible for the first chronograph on a pocket watch, one of the first chronographs on a wristwatch. You have the chronograph with the independent pushers and the flyback function. I believe Longines invented that also.
Exactly, yes.
And one of the first high-frequency chronographs was also by Longines. And it was it in, which year was it when you invented the Longines machine that can measure up to like a millionth of a second for sports technology?
But that actually, it was actually the high-frequency technology, I would say, that revolutionized the timekeeping for, in particular, sport events.
Yes.
And yes, you're right, Longines was the first brand being able to measure these sport events at the precision of 1/10 of a second in 1914,
Yes.
and 100th of a second in 1916. And then, of course, all the organizers of important sport events, they came to Longines because they really had this reputation of providing an extremely accurate timekeeping.
Yes.
And then it was in '59 that we integrated for the first time this high-frequency technology also in wristwatches. And we brought actually out this June the Ultra Chron that we have here also on the table. And this is actually a diving watch from '69, but it really recalls this extremely rich history because it has a high-frequency movement that is integrated. And what is very nice about this watch is also that the certification, it's not just a standard COSC chronometer certification, but we certified the whole watch head. So it's not just the naked movement, which shows really how precise this watch is. And actually, I need to tell you a small anecdote. When we started to ship out this watch in June this year, one of the first pieces were also going to France, and we shipped them to Galeries Lafayette. And the first day they arrived in the Galeries Lafayette, there was a consumer coming to our boutique asking for the watch. I do not know how this consumer knew that this specific day this watch was arriving, but the collectors, they always know more than we know ourselves. And he was asking for this watch, and he said he would like to check the precision of the watch. So I think that our sales personnel got a bit nervous. So he took the watch and he had a tool that he connected to his iPhone and to the watch. And after 4 or 5 minutes, he said, "Okay, I've done my work." And well, actually, you know me, because I'm a huge watch collector. I have all the big brands, all the big, one of the biggest collection actually of watches in France. Now, I have never ever with my tool measured such a precision like on this Longines Ultra Chron. So that was, I think, a very nice statement about this watch, and it means that also we are able to bring in state-of-the-art technology like high frequency at the price point below 5,000 euros, because this product retails for 3,500 euros exactly.
Yeah. What I really like is that it's so significant, you're right, that Longines played such a huge role in high-frequency watchmaking. And also, it's so distinctive. As you mentioned, the case and the lugs, you can see, is so distinctive. It really is very eye-catching for collectors, for wearers, for admirers. There's something else your brand also launched very recently, which is quite momentous for Longines, is the Heritage Record. The Heritage Record, which now has a chronograph on the dial. And I've always loved this collection because it's got these retro style, these vintage markers, the track around. And what made you guys decide to finally make it as a chronograph than just a regular dress watch?
Well, I think that you know that Longines, the pillars that I would say define the best the DNA of Longines is elegance and watchmaking tradition. And these products like the Record, and the same also the watch that we just brought out recently to celebrate our 190 years of history,
yes. The
they,
master,
for me, perfectly combine both pillars, watchmaking tradition and elegance, because of course all the movements that we are using now for these watches, they have the silicon balance spring that is integrated, but we always take elements from the past. For example, on this dial, it's a very a dial from a pocket watch that is older than 100 years, that we used in terms of finishing and also the engraving of the numbers that we integrated here in this watch. And then also in the style of the Record, you see elements from the past, but of course that we, I would say, brought to a contemporary taste of today.
Yeah, this is of course the Master Collection 190th anniversary. This is the steel model. The yellow gold and rose gold models are limited to 190 pieces, correct?
They are, in fact, they are limited to 190 pieces, each of them, and they are already sold out. Maybe some of the retailers, they still have them, but we in our headquarters in Longines, we do not have anything left. They were sold out, I think, after having presented them for 1 week to our retailers, we didn't have more.
Fantastic. That means your fan following is still really excited about your new products.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it will be amiss to not mention the Spirit Zulu series. For those of you hardcore connoisseurs of Longines, you would know the Spirit Zulu very well. This, of course, is inspired by that spirit of exploration, of aviation. And what can you tell me about these?
Well, actually, this watch has a GMT movement that is integrated.
Yes.
And it was actually Longines that invented the first GMT movement for wristwatches in 1925. But the history of GMT movements for Longines even is earlier, because in 1908, the ruler of Istanbul came to Longines and asked Longines to develop a pocket watch in which you have actually 2 time zones that are integrated. By this time in Istanbul, they were still using the time, related to the sun rising and sun setting, but with the upcoming importance of public transports, of boats and trains, of course, they had an interest that people were on time for the departure of these boats and trains. So he asked Longines to develop a watch, one with a time zone that still is related to the sun rising and sun setting. And the second time zone, that is what they called by this time the French time, which is the time that we know today. And this was, I would say, the very first GMT watch that we developed in 1908. And then in 1925, in a pocket watch, in a wristwatch. And of course, at the same time in the 20s, this function was also integrated in flying instruments that Longines integrated in airplanes, because airplanes became more and more important around the whole world. And then there was, of course, the need to define a common time zone that is a reference time zone, so to avoid airplane crashes, because people speak about different times. So there was this zero time zone, Greenwich, that was defined. And as you know, zero in the pilot alphabet means Zulu. This is why we call the watch the Longines Spirit Zulu.
Fantastic. It's really beautiful how you've come up with so many cool, elegant pieces based on the rich history of Longines. So I must ask you, could you reveal a little bit about where you are taking your brand right now, or maybe what's in store for spring 2023?
Well, I think what made really Longines strong was exactly that in a very consequent way, we were using these two pillars of our DNA, elegance and watchmaking tradition, for many, many years. Well, actually 190 years.
Yes.
And I think it's now our role and responsibility to make sure that we evolve these two marketing pillars in order to keep the same success for the coming 190 years. And what definitely, I would say, defined the attitude of Longines in these 190 years was the pioneering spirit. All these, I would say, explorers of the sky, the sea, the land, they always came to Longines because they know that Longines had extremely precise timing instruments for the wrist, but also for the navigation on boats or airplanes. And they were extremely reliable. And Longines was very open also to develop together with them new watches. When you just think about very new models like Lindbergh or Weems that really developed flying instruments in wristwatches, that was really totally new. They came to Longines because they knew that Longines was interested to always try to move forward, to innovate. And I think this spirit of innovation is something that is very important, that we also need to keep for the future.
It's very exciting to hear. And I understand that the historic factory of Longines, when Longines became the first brand to mechanize the production of wristwatches, that factory can still be visited, right?
Yes, exactly.
In Switzerland, in Saint-Mihiel?
Well, actually, we have our offices even in this factory today.
So your office is there right now?
Yes, exactly. Nice. Yes, and the production site also. The production site and also the production of the movements. It's all in the still in this historical building. And what is very interesting is actually that, well, the very first ateliers of Longines in 1832, they were actually in the heart of Saint-Imier. And then the first big factory was exactly built in 1867, where we have still our buildings and offices today. And every single watch that left this factory from 1867 is registered in Longines with a serial number. So you see actually the books, the archive of these watches. And we know for every single watch, and that interesting point is without any interruption. So even World War I, II, quartz crisis or economic crisis, without any interruption, we can trace today with the serial number every single watch that left the factory, and we know exactly the date when we produced it, to whom we sold it, and most important, the exact list of components that have to be inside to verify if the watch is authentic. And this is why we propose actually to Longines owners of very old watches that they can send a watch to us.
Oh, that's nice.
We analyze it and we make a certificate of authentication if we find all these components inside the watch. Sometimes they were actually repaired and replaced by non-original components. But since we have a very big stock of old components, for most of these timepieces, we are even able to restore them to the original one, and I think this is something totally unique and fascinating about Longines. Yeah?
That's fantastic. How many brands can actually trace their uninterrupted history for that amount of time? Maybe there's Audemars Piguet, there's Patek, and of course, the brand with the oldest copyright logo, Longines. Correct?
But I'm not sure if there is another one than Longines, but you maybe know better than me.
Maybe, not sure.
But we try to understand. For the time being, the only one we really are sure is Longines. Again,
in luxury watches.
A lot of brands, of course, they have this record, but we are, as far as I know, the only one that has it without any interruption.
Yes, yeah. And with that, I need to thank you for your time, sir. I really enjoyed discovering the current collection with you. So for those of you at home, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and every time you watch sports, when you see a horse or an athlete cross the starting line and the finishing line, remember that technology was built upon Longines technology. See you guys again soon.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for joining us here today.